today's press, and this is what it had to say. Hope springs not only in the voters' breast. Many fellow men and women come forward to lead the nation. Ambitions are stirred, meetings are held, coalitions formed, manifestos created, and promises made. Their venture is driven by either bravery or knavery. The country has been voting since 1948 as an independent nation, with only the most modest of progress to show. On the other hand, ill-advised and ill-conceived policies and actions of the elected have done near fatal damage to the social fabric as well as the country's own prospects. But, however hard the times, great expectations bloom, repeated failure notwithstanding. That politics is the easiest path to fame and fortune is an open secret in this country. In Sri Lanka, public life is given a meaning, a very different meaning to the more evolved societies, taken as an occupation with very little accountability, but replete with incredible opportunities for personal gain and fame. As it has become a career, earlier started, more the length of time on the gravy train. In the common attitude, longer the stay in politics, greater the respect. Tarak Balasuri, is that true?
Well, it's a fairly generalization of the entire political process, and to a certain degree, yeah, I would agree with it. You know, the politics in Sri Lanka since the independence has not got us anywhere. It has been a bit of a failure, and I think, you know, a lot of people attribute it to after 77 and the war, the subsequent war which we had. But in reality, you know, we were doing so great from 1948 to 1977 either. So it's, you know, it's interesting that I've been reading a book by perhaps you know this famous journalist called Vittachi, and he wrote about the 1958 communal riots, and the elements which he identified in 1958 still seems to persist to this date. So that goes to show that, you know, we really haven't fixed some of the major problems which has, you know, persisted for more than 70 years.
But you would agree, won't you, that since independence our progress has been painfully slow. The economy, which was opened up in, say, 77, it certainly held better prospects than it did. In fact, at independence, Sri Lanka had rather gilded prospects, so much so that one fellow named Lee Kuan Yew wanted to emulate Sri Lanka in, well, Ceylon as he was then, in his own little state called Singapore. There's no point discussing that. Now we all know the differences between the two. But I wanted to ask you, in terms of the candidacy that has recently been announced by the SLPP, I wanted to ask you whether, and then there is also the other side, so to speak. It may be the other two sides, or three even. None of them have announced their candidate, but I suppose they will. But I wanted to ask you, in terms of the person that you're working with, you're from the UPFA, but you're sort of aligned with the SLPP, and I wanted to ask you about the candidate announced by the SLPP. Is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, is he really the right choice? Because there's so many various concerns about his candidacy. And is it something that this new party is going to be able to live with?
Yeah, most certainly, you know, and I'm very excited about his announcement of his candidature. I think, you know, as you correctly said, since 1948, you know, we've been ruled by politicians, and Gotabaya Rajapaksa excuse me, to a large extent, he's not a politician. So the political machinery will be controlled by Mahinda Rajapaksa. But here's a man who has a vision for the country, and his main objective would be to ensure that the vision gets carried forward. And I'll give you a very simple example. You know, I've been to so many political meetings since I was, you know, quite small, because I come from a political family. But this is the first time I went to a political meeting when they said it's going to start at 3 o'clock. It started sharp at 3 o'clock. And the meeting was supposed to finish at 5 o'clock, and the meeting got finished sharp at 5 o'clock. And the political message which he delivered that day, he didn't go out to attack anybody. You know, he basically spelled out a vision for the country. And that vision, I think, you know, he spoke of a disciplined society, he spoke of technology, he spoke of youth, he spoke of, you know, national security, and he all the things which are, and of course economic growth, all the things which are important to the people at this stage. And he spoke of functionability. Mainly, if you see the present government, things are not functioning. And if you want to get something done, nothing happens, you know. So I think with Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he will give some sort of new confidence to the people, which the country and the economy is lacking. And I believe that, you know, he will set this country straight.
Right, but you've just said this here, and it brings me into another one of my questions, which is that the next presidency, that means post the current presidency, under the 19th Amendment, the powers of the president are severely different, very much different from the presidency of Mahinda Rajapaksa, and also will be different from President Sirisena's first term. So whoever comes next, either if it is President Sirisena himself or whoever comes in, the late Hemanta Kulasuriya described the role of the presidency in the wake of the 19th Amendment as having been reduced to that of an eunuch. Is there really any point in being president with the 19th Amendment in place?
Yes, the president still has, you know, tremendous powers. Yeah, he can't hold any ministries other than the Ministry of Defense.
Yeah.
But which also, I mean, even before the 19th Amendment, the ground reality in politics in Sri Lanka would be that if the president is from one party and the parliament is from a different party, then there can be clashes, and as a result of the clashes, especially considering that we don't have a maturity of working together, let's say in France, the president.
But it doesn't seem to have worked twice in Sri Lanka's history. We had President Kumaratunga,
exactly,
and we had Prime Minister Wickremesinghe. That ended in disaster.
Exactly.
And so did this one.
Exactly. So that's why we need to have, you know, for whatever the next government, we need to have a president and a prime minister who will see eye to eye and who has worked together and who can work in the future together. So I don't know whether the
so is it going to be a return to family bandism?
Well, one can interpret it as family bandism. I think, you know, let's say if Ed Miliband and David Miliband, when they contest for the lead of the Labour Party, nobody called it family bandism. And I think more importantly,
but I don't think that the Miliband brothers would have been able to control 70% of the national spend as the Rajapaksas did when they were in power.
Yeah, I think the power concentrating into one area during the last government is probably
it was actually not just one area, it was into one family.
Okay, one family. It's something which we have to certainly re-look at. But I think President Mahinda Rajapaksa, what's more important is that he, in our party convention, he said that he's not nominating.
Which party are you talking about now?
SLPP.
Right.
Okay, the SLPP convention. He set out to say that, you know, I'm not nominating any candidate who I want. I'm nominating the candidate which people want.
But every time the media or anybody asked anyone in this SLPP, they'd all say the same thing. Well, Mahinda Rajapaksa will choose. But when Mahinda Rajapaksa came on that stage and he said that, I did understand that bit. And he said that it is the people's choice. But you all didn't have an election of the people?
We don't need to have an election.
Why? At least he could have done a President Daniel Arap Moi famously had people line up in a queue.
No, because it was pretty much a unanimous decision. There was only one MP who raised concern, and then he's pretty much he has now pretty much moved to SLFP. But within I have come on TV programs. I have come on, I think, even in this program, and I stated that the MPs want Gotabaya Rajapaksa. So when the majority of the people want Gotabaya Rajapaksa,
but to be transparent and open.
To transparent to whom?
To the public, because at the end of the day, y'all aspire to rule and administer for and on behalf of the public.
But we've been transparent in our group meetings. We've been transparent amongst the MPs. We have had discussions with the president.
You could be like Ranil Wickremesinghe, because he says the same thing. He says, well, my working committee, my this, my that. And it's almost the same thing, Tariq, that you're saying, that this is what you all feel. But there is a wider democracy, and in that, one is used to having elections within the party machinery to vote. Why not do that? That's more transparent than behind closed doors, and then you're making an announcement, because we don't really know that.
That has been a practice in Western democracies, where there are there's democracy within parties. But in Asian context, most of the time you try to come to some sort of a concession, and then. So
this is like a consensus thing.
Yes, I would think so. I mean, let me ask you a question.
The reason, Tariq, before you ask me the question, the reason I'm saying this is that there is concern that this was just a family party. They had their proxy, the professor as their proxy, and that this is a family party. And at least if one was to address that issue, and that the issue being family bandism, whatever is said and done, and you analyze reams and reams of newspaper articles, radio footage, TV footage, you'll come to the same thing, that the public almost grew fed up. And one of the biggest concerns was this concentration of power within the one family. I'm just going on about that because there have been other families too, but I'm just going on about this because it's the most current one. And therefore, if you had your ear to the ground, and you really wanted to address the public's concern on this issue, wouldn't it have been better to have had a election, and then he could have been elected for all to see? You could have had your favorite channels there. We would have been there.
Well, usually, how the inner democracies of political parties work is, is discussed within a limited number of people. It's not televised. Not even in the Western in Western countries.
It's not televised, certainly, but. For example, the Labour Party conference, the Conservative Party conference is all. This is all televised.
Our conference was televised.
When Theresa May was deposed and the new one elected, it was very publicly done. But okay, around 200,000 people voted, and that's a different thing. But they were party members. But you can see the point I'm making, that there was a wider transparency instead of just one person coming up on the last day and saying, oh, by the way, guess what? It was the people's choice is Gotabaya. Right, can I just go on to some other issues? These are things that we've been asked in recent days. One is, of course, the issue of his Gotabaya Rajapaksa's citizenship. Now, there is some concern that he hasn't quite completely finished the process of giving up his American citizenship.
He has completely finished the process of if he's not a citizen, then anyone can take some illegal action against it. But I think this is being used by the UMP deliberately, and especially I've seen it on Twitter with certain people insisting that he has not.
Who will the onus be on? Would it be on the Elections Commissioner?
Yes, well, somebody has to complain against the, and then can go to court saying that, he's not a citizen.
Isn't that a bit arrogant? Isn't it better to say, well, again, I'm back to the same point. Just like the election, so-called non-election of the election, which comes up with Gotabe being the candidate.
I must correct you over there, because it was only Kumar Velgama out of the, when we had our group meeting, it was only Mr. Kumar Velgama who expressed concern that, and he would not provide
But
support.
you could have shut him up forever if you had an open election in your
We don't need to do that. We don't need to do that, because we know when all the MPs are saying unanimously.
It's a bit like the Prime Minister, when he says about SOFA and AXA, and when he says, look, we didn't bring it to Parliament because we've got the majority. What do you mean?
It's different, because let's say, for example, in the UMP with the leadership crisis, there's a lot of people coming out openly saying they want Sajid, a lot of people backing Ranil, so there's a clash. And there was never a clash in SLPP.
So why can't you? Have you not considered just to put this, at least this concern, to bed once and for all? For Mr. Rajapaksa to release the details of all the.
He has released the certificate
of renunciation.
Yes, and it was public.
Apparently, it's not on some list.
That I don't know through the legal what's the legal process in the US.
Right.
But I would think it's a federal crime. If someone is messing with, if they're forging, that would imply that he's a US citizen, and if they're forging the certificate, that would be a federal crime.
Now, there are other things like I'm giving you some questions that I've collected from basically from the public that have come up. Has Mr. Rajapaksa, candidate Rajapaksa, declared his asset declaration yet, or is he in the process of doing that?
Well, the presidential election has not been called yet.
Yes, so at the time?
At the time, he will do the needful at the right time.
He will comply. What about, are you all not worried, or have you had a discussion? You must have had a discussion, informal even. What about all these court cases against Mr. Rajapaksa, candidate Rajapaksa?
What about them?
Well, what about the negativity that stems from them?
Well, it's been a witch hunt. It's been a witch hunt from day one, where the Yahapalana government had targeted certain people, and including the 19th Amendment, which even
including these cases in the United States.
I haven't really, I don't know the details of the cases in the United States. So I believe there was 2 cases which were filed.
What I'm concerned is that let's say that he's elected as the president, and then what happens? Is he going to be a president of a nation that will be frightened or fearful of being arrested or anything like that when he goes to the United States? Or even worse, have the president of our country, of the sovereign nation, be summoned to a court in the United States to answer, as a witness to, or to give evidence against the claims that are being made against him?
To answer the first question, he cannot be arrested because he'll be going as a head of state under diplomatic immunity. Right. So I don't think that will arise.
You remember what happened to General Pinochet?
He was not in power. He got arrested in Spain.
He was actually detained.
He was in England, but through a court in Spain.
Right.
They put a court, human rights case in Spain, and then he was detained in. But then he was 91 years old, and then he was not in power. But so I don't think this, all this, and it also seems very surprising that all these cases seem.
As far as the public's concerned, when these things rise, these concerns sort of surface again and again, it always means that there's an election. Well, so you have to expect that. You can't just say, it's not me. I'm telling you, all these questions have come from people out there who want to know the answers.
That's fantastic. I think if we are going to elect somebody for president, we need to vet him properly and see that he's the proper candidate. But also that it's also a bit surprising that all these cases have cropped up.
That's I have to agree with you.
During the the last leg of when you are just ready to the
furlong. Yeah,
yes, okay. And for the 4.5 years, these cases didn't crop up.
But how is Mr. Rajapaksa going to handle these things?
With his legal team.
So he's going to take it head on.
Yes.
Right. Are you all not worried about international concerns on this, I'm just going to say, accountability issue? You know, the various allegations being made against the armed forces in Sri Lanka towards about the end of the war,
yeah,
and so on. And that has been a big sticking point, the UN resolutions and so on. The GSP was at risk at one point. They took it away, they brought it back in. And all this is sort of always looking towards that issue. How do you think there'll be what do you think the international perspective is going to be if candidate Rajapaksa wins?
Well, I've been in touch with some of the political attaches of the Western countries, and they are willing to work with whoever the sovereign people of Sri Lanka elect as their president. So I don't think that will be an issue. But the West has always has carried out their program, or has carried out their intentions by using human rights and other means.
Is it? Do you think that the West are trying their best to bring in a new constitution to accede to the demands, if you like, of various splinter groups?
Well, I don't think the West is really interested in whether we have a new constitution or not. But the West's main interest is the geopolitics of isolating China. And if a new constitution helps them, let's say a federal constitution helps the West in getting their objective, then they will push us for a constitution. And if you look at all the countries like Yemen, Iraq, and and all the countries which the West has pushed forward these federal constitutions.
Yeah.
And we have seen that these countries are in turmoil.
I'm going to let you have a drink of water. In the meantime, I've got a message for you, all our viewers. If you want to send us questions, please do so by SMS on 0772 300 305. Please do not send us WhatsApp or anything like that, because I can just only switch on to one, and that's SMS, please. 0772 300 305. Our guest tonight on Newsline Prime is Mr. Tariq Abali Surya, Member of Parliament, UPFA from the Kegol district. Now then, Mr. Abali Surya, another question coming from members of the public. Does Gotabaya Rajapaksa have the political una, the political fever? Has he got it in him?
I mean, what's the political fever in?
It's about what you said before, you said he's not really a politician.
Yeah.
He is a, what do we call him? A delivery man? Delivers what the public wants? Is that, how do we describe him?
I think he's probably a technocrat. He has been a technocrat, and then I think he has taken up the challenge of
Now, are we going to see? Let's say this is all on the premise that he's going to be elected. Are we going to see a little situation arise where we have currently between President Sirisena and Prime Minister Wickremesinghe? As you know, there's no point us hiding. There are big differences of opinion and so on. The president feels this man let him down in terms of governance, the central bank, blah blah blah, all that business. So are we going to see, because from what you tell us, candidate Rajapaksa is pretty much his own man. That's what you're saying. Are we going to see a situation where he's going to have a little fight with his brother?
No, certainly not. I mean, I don't foresee that. They have worked very well together.
Yes, but it was only then in charge of one ministry and those things that came under that ministry.
Yeah.
He was a ministry secretary.
Yeah. So now
this time around he's the president.
He's the president who'll be the head of the cabinet, and whereby the ministers will have the responsibility for different subject-wise, and his vision will be carried forward through the ministers.
And another question: with China having its own challenges in terms of trade and so on, do you think that China will have the resources and the inclination to help Sri Lanka in the manner that they worked so closely with President Rajapaksa during that administration, probably in pursuit of their Belt and Road initiatives?
It's a billion-dollar gamble China is taking, so China is not going to back away from the belt.
No, I know, but what about? I'm talking about new money, new projects, because I'm trying to also ask you whether your party is going to lean once again towards China, or will you take advantage of the new relationships that have been re-established in Sri Lanka in terms of the West and so on, and are you all going to be a bit more wider spread, more non-aligned in that way?
I always say that economically we need to look forward to China, but as far as democracy and then our parliamentary practices are concerned, then we need to look forward towards the West. With this government, they expected a lot of investments to come from the West, but it didn't materialize. And I think it's just a question of people having confidence, and I can't believe the feedback I have got from people. When I go back to Kegol, they are extremely enthusiastic about GR becoming the candidate, and I just have a feeling that and just as soon as he becomes president, the feeling of optimism will just.
I've got two questions for you. They're pretty short ones. Yeah. Just as we're about to finish, this is Newsline Prime. Newsline Prime, by the way, broadcasts twice a week, Thursday and Friday, and it's live at 8 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Newsline broadcasts in the morning from 7 to 7:30 a.m. and it's also live. And here we go, the last two questions. One is, in your when you go to your constituency, people talk to you about Gota and all that. Can you honestly say that anybody has never asked you to comment on the N factor?
N factor?
The Namal factor, the children.
Yeah.
Because there is concern about what they were up to at the time. Yeah. Have they never asked you this question, your constituents?
In what sense?
Are they going to run havoc? Are they going to abuse their family power?
But I think, and the reason why a lot of people are hopeful is that, one of the main things which Gota spoke in the convention was about corruption.
Right.
Okay. So I think he'll take a head-on stand in trying to.
So he'll keep the kids under control.
I would think so.
You hope? Do you hope so?
Well. There has been some bad press which Nama has got, and then so things have been exaggerated to a certain degree. Okay. And so it's not fair to me to comment on a certain thing unless a specific instance is.
Yeah, but my real question is: have any of your constituents ever said to you, Mahathir, what about the kids? What are they going to do? How is Gota Mahathir going to handle that?
We are concerned about the country at the moment. We are not concerned about a family. We are not concerned about, I know a lot of people are saying that because he's his brother. It's like Gota is Emma's brother.
Yes, I know. I know he's a strict man.
Yeah.
He's disciplinarian.
Yeah.
So will he extend that to his nephews?
Of course, I think it should be. Law should be the same law for everybody.
So the law is the law.
Yeah.
One final question. What about Plan B?
What's Plan B?
In the event that the citizenship issue becomes challenged, and, if it doesn't happen, isn't it true that Plan B is for the former First Lady Shanti Rajapaksa to come in?
Certainly not. I mean, it's like when Mark Waugh was supposed to be the better cricketer than Steve Waugh. And, when both Waugh brothers played for Australia, nobody said family baptism or baptism.
But they're both talented players.
When we talk of, Lee
But
Kuan,
you need to give me a yes or no.
I said, of course not. And when Lee Kuan Yew appointed his son, nobody talks about that. Lee Kuan Yew.
So Madam Rajapaksa is going to be at home.
Lee Kuan Yew's son's wife is the chairman of Thammasek, and nobody talks about family baptism.
Actually, I want to do a special program on that.
Because things work there. What is necessary is
as long as it all works.
As long as it works. In Japan, family politics is, you check the records and see it's quite large. And then Justin Trudeau gets elected. His father was the Prime Minister of Canada. Nobody talks about these things. It's only in Sri Lanka.
But it's always only when there's elections.
but this is the man who SLPP and the majority of the country wants. And if he's the man, is it his fault that he's the brother of Mahinda Rajapaksa? And all the questions which you ask were very valid. But I think you should also ask the same questions from the other side.
We'll do that on Face the Nation. And Deshan Gonawala is a producer there, and he'll
just one more
get
thing.
to say that.
And let's say, with a team like Gota and MR, do you think a team of Gota and MR will work? Don't you think it will work better than Ranil and Sajid when they can't even get along?
We'll have to let the people decide that.
Of course.
Tariq Balasuri, thank you very much for being on Newsline Prime. Thank you for the slight overrun, and do have a wonderful evening ahead of you. And we'll be broadcasting same time, same place tomorrow evening. Take care, and of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.